was going on with um, there we go, with Dax and Mike from CSG. So we started out many of our presentations with the slide to really remind everybody that this is a workshop and exercise to think about the future. What this is the future of all high school students at Richland, not just those who could potentially be impacted by a new high school. It was really taking a focus in a very global perspective that every child would be positively impacted by whatever the outcome of this workshop series was. So a little bit of background that we shared in the beginning was talking about the 2013 and 17 bonds really focused on addressing the need at the elementary and middle school level. And even a lot of feedback that in 2017, the question already started coming out about a third high school and the overcapacity issues that were being experienced, and then also the educational opportunities. In conjunction with that, there was some work happening. There was, of course, a superintendent search that was happening a year plus ago. There was a security assessment that was going on district-wide, and then also a special ed task force. So I bring that up because Dr. Schulte always wanted to talk about how those task force would inform this process as well. And so as the new task force, whatever they may be, that the school district is facing now, they would be complementary to this process and integrated throughout. So the original purpose and the schedule that we had, and it was a bit compressed, was to spend from January 2020 through May 2020 conducting workshops essentially every 3 weeks, where we would reach out, hold the workshops at different facilities, tour them so that there was an understanding of all the options available district-wide for high school students. So we we ended up going and extending the time to 2 hours because we would spend about 45 minutes or so touring, asking questions. Everyone was very interested. I think it was a positive experience. And then we would come back and conduct some questions. And so we broke it into kind of two different segments. And then ultimately that committee would, through evaluation of need and priority, and of course budget, provide recommendations to the board in June of 2020 that all of you would ultimately approve, evaluate, and then put forward towards a February 2021 bond. Clearly, the plans changed. Yep. So there was the bond planning piece, and then there was also the study and survey piece. So the study and survey piece is a study that is required by the state to be conducted every 6 years, and it's essentially assessing what the current conditions are of all of the buildings within the school district, assessing need. And there's essentially 13 chapters. You can see them here. And a lot of it is nuts and bolts. Richard, Karen, their team, we actually went through every single building and you assess the state of the building. And so we did make it through that portion where there was an observation of all the facilities and then some of the confirming need from neighboring school districts that there wasn't capacity to house students and some of those. But we did pause once everything shut down. There is a key component that where these two exercises intertwine, and that is part of the study and survey has to be a long-range plan or future plan. And so that component would have come from the other series of facility meetings that we were having, and then of course that bond package. If anyone has questions, please just intervene. So we did charge the committee, and this was a really important aspect. This is kind of a job description for those individuals who were on the committee. And if the board chooses to move forward with this again, perhaps more than ever before, this is critical that the individuals who are on the committee have that ability to think broadly, to reach out to the community, to build support, really understand what the community need is throughout the entire Richland School District, and be that conduit to build support and positive momentum for the board. So if the group reconvenes and there's an evaluation on On bringing a committee together again, I think it would be important to kind of look at those components to make sure that individuals are appropriate for the committee. So what we did complete, the first three workshops were really focused on building the foundation of understanding of the programs within the Richland community, as well as starting to prioritize need. And so that first workshop was really looking out into the future. What does a 2040 graduate of Richland School District need to succeed? And really thinking through what that means. And then looking at the lens of what are the skills, trades, opportunities so that when those students graduate, they can stay here and continue to stay within the community and find um, opportunities beyond high school. So that was the first workshop. The second workshop, we toured TriTech. So we got to see some of the opportunities there for students. And then it really started to focus more on some of the community needs and expectations. Understanding that bringing a third high school on it's a big deal because there's kind of a natural balance when there's two, and you bring a third on, and what does that mean, and what would the community want out of that facility to make sure that it was supported and could be used after hours. These are facilities that are open to everyone, and so what would be those benefits and opportunities for the community? And then starting to talk about if there was programs that were more magnet focused, so specific programs that were at a higher level at Richland, Hanford, or at a potential new third high school. And then what were the programs and curriculum opportunities that would be at all the high schools. And so our third workshop, our final one, we did really start to dive into curriculum and program and specialties, talking about performing arts, health, fitness, and what again, from the community lens, and then also from just the curriculum lens, that what does fitness, lifelong fitness look like? What does varsity athletics look like? What does a performing arts stage need? What is that in the community? So those three workshops were completed. And at that point, we then were transitioning into developing an actual kind of program and understanding, okay, if this is the area of focus that would be at Hanford, what is needed there, what would be at Richland, and then of course building that program and an understanding for what would be needed at the third high school. In addition, we didn't realize how lucky we were at the time, but we conducted an in-person student workshop where we were able to meet with over 200 students, and we had these boards that had a whole bunch of different images on them. They got to put stickers on the ones they liked, red stickers on ones they didn't, and then we had them fill out a worksheet to say, here's what I like individually, and here's three reasons why. So it wasn't just all my friends are putting their red votes here and green votes there. So that was a really interesting aspect. And so there was five categories there, focusing on everything from academics to social aspects to programs that they wished were offered within the district that weren't currently available. The additional planned workshop to take us from that March through the end of June was touring the remainder of the schools and really transitioning into putting the bond packages together. And of course, this conversation has focused on the high school need, but there was also conversation with Karen, Richard about what are the other needs within the district and what would be included. So, transportation needs, maintenance needs, other things like that. So that really starting to build that comprehensive view of what the bond would include and all of the items that would be tackled. And I did want to share this. This was our original schedule, and again, it was very aggressive. In terms of just we went every 3 weeks with the planning phase so that we could hit that June deadline, and then ultimately get to the enough campaign time for the February 2021 bond. It also was a pretty compressed, depending on the scope of the project, but for a true comprehensive high school, that is a pretty aggressive design phase as well as construction phase. So at that time, we kind of worked backward from the goal of being in school in that 2024 school start of school. And when you accelerate that to today, it's always just important to keep in mind how much time it takes. So if we're shooting for a February 2023 bond, kids wouldn't be in school until 2026. And so that need then would continue to amplify through those years, just in the time it takes to design and construct a large building. So what's next? So we're here kind of giving you that update. I do have some questions. I wasn't really sure what the format was going to be here, if it was going to be more of a workshop or not. But I want to pause and just see if there were questions. Carrie and Jill were actually involved in the planning process and in those meetings. So, and then if there was others who want to share, if I missed anything, um, please, the floor is open.
Uh,
Yeah.
I'm just kind of curious, projections for future growth. Uh, we have two high schools, they're approximately, what, 2,100 apiece, probably around there. Uh, do we have any idea what the capacity of the new high school would be, and how long would it take to fill? And I guess what are the current capacities of the two high schools? Are we over capacity? I think we are at Hanford, but
Yes, currently over capacity. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head for both of them, but that was part of the analysis that we did in the study and survey. Part of the bond development would be establishing what the target student population would be, and then also part of the study and survey is projecting out growth for the state. The projections that they give us, and then with historical data from your population trends. And so that would be part of the decision, is to say, okay, is this the same size? Is it a different size? Is it a smaller magnet program? Is it project-based learning and something smaller? So that level of detail was not yet discussed, but it would be part of the information we would share with you, that if you go with this size of school, it would keep you wouldn't get at capacity until this date and time. And that's all theoretical, but using that data. And then, if you went with something bigger, it would be this dollar figure. And then this would be the time when it would be at capacity.
so as far as like community growth, I know like Pasco, the next 20 years, they're expecting 50,000 in their population increase. Do we know what that will be within? I mean, do we have any projections of Richland and West Richland, or
We do.
and do we know what those are? Curious.
They'll have.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll have them. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that it would be that level of detail, but we can certainly provide that to you. That is part of that study and
I'm a
survey,
new
is
board
looking at it.
member, so I'm
No,
just
no,
asking.
it's good.
Yeah,
Can I play that
no,
part still?
can you be on the committee, Ken?
Yeah.
You could be our chair of our committee.
No, I only have a few months left.
Well, no, but those are all, all of that is combined with the state match, because that's going to be a big part of the bond too, is that if you overbuild, then your eligibility for state match diminishes. And so that will be all part of that equation of understanding what that bond package is, and hopefully finding that sweet spot that gets you the longest length of time for additional space, as well as the largest state match. I mean, that's kind of the optimum scenario.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I
Sure.
would love to see. So the last time we met was March 5th, and
Yeah.
then a week later you met with the kids.
Yeah.
I would love to see that information.
So
at
I
some point.
actually I'm sharing with you the abridged version. I do have the unabridged version, and it'll take a second. So this actually is, and I can share this with the board. For some reason, I can't go back. There we go. So there's a summary after the pages that that I just went through, that summarize all of the information from all of the workshops, and how we kind of grouped the different responses in different categories, because there was a lot of similarities, but then there was a lot of kind of one-offs, and so it was important to capture that. So I'm clicking through really quickly the 3 workshops that we did with the committee, and then this is the summary for the students that we did. And we ended up going in for Hanford and for Richland. We just had one teacher, and we were able to kind of go through their classes, kind of rolled throughout the day. And then at River's Edge, we went, and all the students were able to participate. So that was pretty cool for everybody to be part of it. And so what this is showing, and I don't have in this presentation, but I do have the original boards that the kids looked at, because there was probably between 20 to 30 images on each one. And so in this particular one, it was academics and interest was what we were asking the students to share. The three with the most green dots in terms of what academic area would you like to go to most, or what piques your interests most, are this is actually Pullman High School. They call it the ESPN of the Palouse. So that was one that got a lot of attention. This is an Orange Theory, like just kind of a gym experience, and then a horticulture experience from a greenhouse we did on the west side. The students did not like these three that were more just kind of I don't know if they felt like they were too austere or kind of cold. And then the gray dots are when we asked students. So each student had their own worksheet so that they could be more they could share their feelings more honestly, perhaps. And so with that, you have the same photos in two of the three situations, and then this kind of huddle space breakout room was the third. So for academics, that was what they liked. For community, and kind of, we talked about community in the sense of what are the aspects that would draw you to this, or want your family to come after hours, or would want you to hang out there with your friends. And so again, on this one, just a second, there we go. These were the three. So kind of an outdoor garden space, almost like a Starbucks type feel. These are two in residence halls that we've done, but they were very appealing to the students. They did not like these three images. And individually, they were completely aligned, which that was really surprising. That doesn't happen very often. For support and comfort, this was about if you're feeling stressed out, or if you want to meet a teacher somewhere, or what are the aspects beyond education that you want in a new school. And so these were the images again. Surprisingly, they were very similar. And then these were the three they did not like.
I can't see the one on the left very well on the 112.
Yeah.
Either one. What's happening
What's
in this
happening?
picture?
It's hilarious. We've done this. We've done this with
Those like
staff,
little pods,
and staff hate this photo. They're kind of these little cubbies in the wall,
little pods.
and like little reading nooks. Yeah. And a staff
Oh.
member walks in and they just think, "Oh my gosh, that's a that's a supervision nightmare at high school." But the kids always love these, of just having kind of a spot to
Probably
retreat,
for
to
the
read a
same
book.
reason.
Probably. Yeah. And then these two, I think it's interesting because sometimes we wonder if kids are influenced, or anyone is influenced by whether there's people in the space, so you can kind of see how it would be used. But they identified both individually and as a group that these were ones they liked, and they weren't really filled with kids. But what they described in their worksheets was just that bright, airy feeling, that connection to the outdoors. And then this one, again, similar, very comfortable, welcoming, smaller scale. And then in terms of socializing, if you were going to go eat lunch somewhere, where would be the place that you would eat lunch or meet your friend before school, and connect? And again, it was remarkable. The kids were both individual and as a group aligned. And then interestingly, these that are the more traditional school spaces that they weren't, it just didn't rise to their approval level. And this one is hard to read, and I can forward this to you, but this was one where we had the kids. This one was a little bit different, where we did have the kids highlight the programs that they liked academically, the things that they were wishing they had, they added. So students wrote in certain things, so creative writing. So there was 6 categories: arts, computer science, business, science, tech, engineering, career, health, fitness, athletics, arts, computer science, business, science. Whoops, that's mislabeled. It should be arts, and then health and fitness. And so they added things that they were interested in: physics, astrophysics, marine biology, and different programs. And then also highlighted the ones that they were asked to highlight 5 in each category that would be their top 5 if they were to choose which ones to take.
What's the only orange one over on the, yeah,
Sign language. Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. So there was a lot of traction. And then yoga lab. That was the other.
Oh, yeah,
Those
there it is.
two
Okay.
were the ones that a lot of kids really felt would be a positive add to have those. So that was the student workshop. Any other questions, thoughts, feedback?
The only thing that I want to add just for the rest of the board, and Shelley, since you weren't part of this, I really hope that we continue with the direction that you started us on this project. It's very thorough, it's very inclusive. We get voice from everybody. And I think the part that I most appreciated was the fact that you really wanted student voice. These are the kids that are living and breathing and sleeping and doing everything in this arena. So our idea of what is perfect isn't necessarily what's perfect. And
Right.
these results just from this small handful of kids went to show that traditional school is not where it's at anymore. This is not the wheelhouse that our kids are in.
Yeah.
So I just want to emphasize that I thought your approach and our meetings and the way we gathered information and your assimilation of that was really powerful.
Oh, good.
So from our standpoint, from the feedback that I have, they're doing a great job.
Thank you.
And
very
I'm
much.
really sad that we had to take a break. here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a blessing and a curse. I mean, it's kind of a blessing because this is a 50-year building and everyone's perspective is exceptionally different right now in
Yeah.
what you would provide versus a year ago.
Mhm.
And so
True.
it's something that all school districts are dealing with. What's going to get kids back in school? What are the best of the pandemic things that we can integrate and what goes by the wayside? So
Most of it.
Yep.
Seriously. Yeah, we've
Absolutely.
had, we've had everyone back,
Mhm.
so has been good.
Yes.
So we're full steam ahead for fall, so.
right. So I guess from our perspective, if there is the desire to move forward, it would be kind of a reboot, and we would build that schedule out to start in the fall. And there would be maybe different committee members. Maybe there would be, there would definitely be some different questions that would be asked. But we would ultimately start that effort and then run through roughly Christmas time, then to start allowing at the kickoff of the new year a bond package just to start understanding what that would be in the scope and having the board move forward with that.
I think moving forward with reconstituting the committee and moving forward, reverse planning from February of 23, we need to start in fall.
Yes.
Starting in the fall also lets us see what enrollment will be like in the new normal. And I think it's important to keep going because our current high schools are overcrowded beyond design capacity now. And in 6 years or 5 years, you said 26 open.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
5 years, it's not going to be less, I don't think,
Right. Yeah.
based on the amount of building and
Yeah.
everything else. So
Right, that helps give us our direction. That's good.
So
that's what I think. But
one thing that you mentioned is either rebooting or keeping the committee as it was. Do you have ideas and suggestions on how maybe we can make that committee better based on what you've seen as far as committee membership profiles in those
Right.
committees
Yeah.
that we as a board can sort of look at and evaluate and make sure we've got the right people in the right places?
Right. That's a good question. I mean, you guys know your community the best. So I think that's number one, really an important aspect of who are the people that are critical to be there and having a voice that will be your advocates and be the communicators out. There were a few individuals who were very committed, had already committed to being part of the bond planning. So of course those individuals, and then I think there were some people who this might not be what they were wanting to do, and that's completely fine too. So it was kind of nice to understand where people fell on that spectrum, and so I think we could go back and see those individuals and kind of evaluate the committee members. But most importantly, it's critical that there's wide buy-in and that there isn't the West Richland is getting everything and everyone else is being left behind, because that's when you go from 2 to 3 schools, that's such a challenge from the high school perspective. And so that would be we can go through that and see who made it to all 3, who were kind of prolific in reaching out, and maybe those that didn't, either their interest waned or they weren't really participating, and get back to you guys. And then figure out the ones to add in.
And yeah, I know you have contact too with other districts that have
Mhm.
added the third high school. So
Mhm.
we'll want to learn lessons learned from them. Central Valley,
Mm-hmm.
Ben already reached out to me, Ben Small, the superintendent there, and anything he said they could do to help. As Central Valley went through that,
Yep.
the grandfathering, all that happens when you make these decisions.
Right. So when we actually worked on the Central Valley planning piece, and in preparation for understanding what it means for to go from 2 to 3 high schools, we interviewed 5 different school districts who had gone through that across the state. What were the things that were the hot button pieces? What were the non-negotiables? What were the things that that they did before the bond versus after the bond? And one of the really big kind of universal across the board was there was no boundaries redrawn before the bond, but there was there was a decision to say, here's our plan for students, and so we'll have freshmen, sophomore, and juniors will be opt in, or excuse me, will be required. Juniors can opt out, and then sibling policies. So even in the planning group that we did for Central Valley, that group even addressed that component and made a decision on what direction, and then ultimately, the board had the final say. But there is a lot of lessons learned there. We have a brochure that we put together because it is something that districts. It's great to be able to learn from one another.
Ben said athletics was a big deal.
Yes.
Just following the WIA guidelines, but then having all these transitions.
Right.
Staffing, how does staff? So anyway, lots to talk about.
There is, definitely. Yeah.
Right, what else do you need from us for the fall kickoff? Anything?
So mostly this was just informational on where we were at and where we left off, and hoping to get some input from the board saying, yeah, continue with this direction that we're looking for. That's one of the reasons, and I thank you for making time and outside of, school year and summer with this special meeting, because we want to start this now. We wanted to get the board caught up on this, and then we wanted to hit this ground running as soon as we get past, the 4th of July holiday. We'll start forming our committees again and reaching out to the committee members, because a lot of these people may still be interested. Some of them might have other priorities now after we've been off for a year and a half. So we need to form those committees again, along with district staff, and make sure that we're heading down the right path. So we do want to start this full bore in the fall to be ready for a 2023 bond. So that's what this meeting was for information, making sure you guys knew where we were at, and if we wanted to continue down the same path, or if there was some thoughts on another direction.
I actually have, will you let us know if you are getting more people, new people onto the committee, if you're seeking more community involvement, just because there's a few community members that I know that would be awesome on this committee and have a pretty big sphere of influence. And we really need to be able to establish, it's been a rough year.
Yeah.
And
it
we
is.
need to be able to include as many community members into this planning process to understand the importance of this.
Right.
Well, the first question is, Carrie and Jill, are you back on this committee?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm back on.
So we'll
I
reach-
mean, I was very, very impressed. I would
Yeah.
stand
So we'll reach
unless
back
somebody
out
has a
and build
burning
that
desire
committee.
to replace me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think another,
Unreplaceable.
well, it was actually Jill and Carrie came and wanted the student input. So that was really a great piece to push forward. I think the other piece of it is considering different task force, because it could be that there is a very large group and then there's individual task force that kind of focus on different things. One that focuses maybe on athletics or other, magnet programs or things like that. So I think if there's people who are interested that would be positively or able to speak positively out in the community, I mean, I think we want to make room.
Yeah.
So
I like that idea. I felt like with the group, it was great, but there were so many of us
Yeah.
and it was a lot. I mean, it was great discussion, but if we can make more of those pods that you're talking
Yeah.
about and make it more specialized, because there were some people that were like really into agriculture that were just experts in that
Yep.
field. And there were people, it was a great group of people from all different walks of life. And
right.
I can see the benefit of
Yeah.
having smaller groups. The total includes more people that have
Mhm.
expertise in certain fields.
Right.
So,
And I'd like to push more for more student voice in that too.
Mhm. Yeah.
Making sure that even if we have a student committee that, we work with however that looks.
Yeah.
Right. And that was Dr. Schulte met with a group of students, and I think are you picking
Yes,
it? Yeah.
yes.
So I don't know if that would be a group that would be worthwhile.
Yeah, they-
Leadership groups. if there are
Those are great
students.
groups, yeah.
Yeah.
That could be one group to utilize and have a
Mhm.
community advisory group now. They would be good. They've given really good input
Yeah.
besides this committee. Just again, that gives more voices in the community.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't want to be too staff heavy.
Right. Well, and if kids go home and they tell their parents and they're excited, that's really
Mhm.
more influential than most adults talking to one another. If the kid's excited and
Well, this is who we're doing it for.
exactly.
This is who's going to reap from it. We just get it, fill in the pieces where they need us.
So if we're looking at River's Edge on this one as well, a replacement, a separate committee with kids from River's Edge would be a different
Mhm.
demographic that we serve. And they may have completely different ideas than
Right.
our comprehensive high school kids.
And in that study of the students, that was the total. We have the breakdown for each of the individual schools. So that was kind of interesting too, to just see the different schools.
And Rick, kind of to add on to your River's Edge conversation, I think this is a great opportunity for us to sort of change that stigma across the board of what ALE looks like, and what kids that benefits, because I think there's a misconception amongst students and adults as to what that venue is. So I want to make sure that we don't necessarily just talk to the parents that are currently in it, because I think there's a percentage of our students that would benefit from that, not fully understanding what that means. So it kind of gives us a segue into an education process for the community on the ALE as well, alternative learning environment.
Yeah.
Acronyms.
Yeah. On occasion, we also even go into 8th grade and say, what would make you
Mhm.
excited to go to high school? What is the thing that you're looking forward to most?
Gives them buy-in.
Right.
I'll be interested to see the differences between the data that you
Mhm.
gathered in 2020 pre-COVID
Now.
to
Yes.
now what students would think.
Mhm.
That'll be
Yeah.
really fascinating. for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right.
Right.
Well, thank you. I
Thank
think
you
we
very
have the
much.
direction and we will start our process.
Thank you guys so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Really
Thank you.
appreciate it. Good to see
Thank
everyone.
you.
see you
Safe
soon.
travels.
Thank you.
All right, so we are going to move into two other agenda items. The first one is Resolution 931. It's a local control, resolution regarding local control of curriculum. And then the second is modification of COVID restrictions, and that's kind of a discussion for the board. So I guess I want to kick this off by saying, I don't know if we have a lot of people listening or not, but if even just for the people here or whoever's listening, the goal of these two, we talked about this just a little bit at the last meeting, and then came to realize that we aren't meeting again as a board except to pay bills until the first week in August or second week in August.
Right.
So what we have been hearing, one of the things is we don't usually take public comment at planning workshops, sometimes at special board meetings we do, but this isn't designed to be anything new. We aren't taking comment because these are really our thoughts and values of these board members collectively and individually that we're going to talk about. They're not meant to represent the community as a whole. There aren't any changes in these resolutions. The proposed resolution anyway. This resolution is intended to clearly set forward the position of the individual board members and the board as a whole as we move forward this summer and in working with our community. It's also an attempt to correct the many misunderstandings this board has been hearing in our community about curriculum and what the state requires and what the state doesn't require for curriculum. So that's kind of the purpose. So this is really a chance for the 5 board members who can only meet here to talk about, actually, we've said everything that's in this draft resolution, but it sets it forth really clearly. Like to thank Mr. Pettit for drafting this and, you know, working through this. But what he's done and what we've done is taken everything that we have said, we've talked about curriculum, we've talked about local control, and we've talked about the sex ed bill that was discussed over the last year or so. So this is resolution 931. I don't know if it's on the website or not. But you can put it on if you want. And it's a draft. This is the first time board members have seen it written in this form because it was only written today. So I'm going to go ahead and read through this. So this is resolution 931 regarding local control of curriculum. There's a few whereases and then there's a resolution. So first whereas. Whereas the Board of Directors of the Richland School District number 400 firmly believes in local control over the adoption of curriculum by school districts in Washington State. Whereas the district's Board of Directors recognizes and takes seriously its responsibility pursuant to RCW 28A 150.230. What that says is to be held accountable for the proper operation of our district to the local community and its electorate. Further, that it is vested with the final responsibility for the setting of policies ensuring quality in the content and extent of its educational program, and that such programs provide students with the opportunity to achieve those skills which are generally recognized as requisite to learning. Whereas the district's Board of Directors remains committed to increasing equity, cultural awareness, diversity, inclusion, and teaching its students a sexual education curriculum that is age appropriate and that reflects the community standards and norms. And whereas the district's Board of Directors holds true their responsibility under state law to establish final curriculum standards relevant to the particular needs of district students or the unusual characteristics of the district, and to only implement curriculum after a robust process, including review by parents, families, students, and staff, resulting in a curriculum that is age appropriate and that reflects the community standards and norms. Therefore, let it be resolved that the Board of Directors of the Richland School District declares, individually and as a board, number 1, that all training and instructional materials used or proposed to be used in the district are available for public inspection in advance, and members of the public are encouraged to inspect those materials in advance and point out to the district and the board any particular matters of concern. And number 2, that equity of opportunity should be provided to all, but equity of outcome is up to individual achievement. Number 3, that no changes to curriculum are planned or supported by this board regarding critical race theory or sexual education. Number 4, that the Richland School District will continue its longstanding commitment to allowing parents to review their students' curriculum, along with their ability to have their student opt out of objectionable material or content without adverse impact. So that is the contents of resolution number 931. And I think it clearly sets forth what this board has been saying over the past year. So I'm open to discussion and comments on the draft. And thanks again for the work on that.
No, it's great. It's what we've always done.
It's what we've done and what we've said. There's nothing new in here, but it is stated. So I want to make sure that we aren't going to misstate something.
No, I think that this is important because we've had some new laws put in place that have made, I mean, as a mother of young kids, it's made me nervous as well because I like local control. I like knowing that my elected officials that are my neighbors are making curriculum choices. And if you read through those bills, both of them allow for local control. However, that still makes parents uneasy. And I totally understand that. It makes me uneasy. And I think it's important for us as the elected officials to let our community know what we're thinking. And that is, with the caveat that that's this board of 5 people and any election cycle can flip a board, right? And so I think it's not to tell families not to worry, we've got it all under control, but to stay aware, I'm not sure who I'm looking at, the camera, there's no camera, and there's only admin out here, but
You can look at Rick.
Okay, I'll look
On the board.
and that is to stay involved and to stay vigilant and know that, we do have an awesome IMC process
Mhm.
that when we do adopt curriculum, we want parents to be involved. None of it, I mean, I'm not speaking for everybody, but I know you well enough to know that we love it when we see people here telling us what they want, because those people love their kids. Those people want us to be making the best decisions we can for their children, and we want that. So yeah, I think this is important to let our community know where the 5 of us sit, and not to say just relax. Keep coming, keep telling us what you want, but this is where we sit right now. And I just wanted to point out on number 3, it says no changes to curriculum are planned or supported by this board regarding critical race theory or sexual education. I do know that our curriculum adoption process is a 7-year process, and our sexual education or health really is up in that process in its natural 7-year cycle coming up soon in 2 more years. Okay. So when that does come into play, we've all already talked about this. I'm pretty sure it was out in an open public meeting because that's the only time we would have chatted about it. That we wanted, and we've already expressed this to you, Nikki, that we want a lot of public involvement and, to shout from the rooftops when that's taking place. And again, it's just when its natural cycle is taking place. It has nothing to do with any laws that were passed this, not last legislative session, but the one before that. Yeah, that's all I have to say right now.
All right.
The only thing I have to add to that is sometimes I think parents are confused when they read stories in the media of things that happen elsewhere in the country. And they think that that's what's happening here, and it has no bearing on what we do.
I just want to thank this board for putting this together and addressing this issue. I think sometimes we forget that we know things that our community members don't know. And by not sharing that and not being vocal about it and not putting it in writing, that it may have a perceived lack of transparency or an accountability issue. And I just want people to know that this is why we do what we do. We want to make sure we are the voice of the community. We are the ones that are trying to make the best policies for the kids. So remind us when we're not being transparent or when you need information that we're not providing you. It's easy for us to get, tied up in our day-to-day activities of hours of research and doing things. So I'm thank you, Rick, for putting this out and reminding us that it's our responsibility also to communicate and educate our community members.
Good.
Yeah, ditto. And thanks to Galt for this work.
Yeah, thanks to Galt.
All right. I guess the other thing I want to point out is this board has also been committed to equity, and that means not providing the same thing to every kid, every student, but looking at them as an individual. What do they need in order to succeed? And all of us have kids. My kids need different things based on what their unique characteristics are like, and that applies to kids who, with special ed needs. It applies to kids in our Quest program, different kinds of things. It applies to kids who come from different languages, different cultural backgrounds. Those are the things that this board still values, and that's one of the things we talk about in here is the ability or our direction to staff to equitably serve kids where they are and what they need in order for them to achieve to their highest potential, or have that opportunity anyway to achieve to their highest potential. I think that's included in here also. So if there's no other discussion on this, is there a motion for?
I actually
resolution?
I
Go
wanted
ahead.
to add
Go
two more
ahead.
things actually to that equity. I know that, when I taught a billion years ago, not really a billion years ago, but when I taught, equity was what Rick was talking about. We're talking about, and I love how it's written, so thank you, Galt. The equity of opportunity should be provided to all, but equity of outcome is up to individual achievement. I think that in recent days, sometimes that word equity has been kind of morphed a bit into this outcome, into having equitable outcomes. And so I really like that we specifically talk about that equity of outcome is up to the student, is not, up to us
And the family.
as our policymakers. So, and then I also wanted to talk quickly about, or just have somebody clarify. I do know that in the comprehensive sex ed bill that passed last 2 sessions ago, they did give us a date in which we needed to have this new set of criteria in place. And it's my understanding that because of COVID, that has been pushed out because we've all been, and I just want to make sure, because I know that there's going to be some family members that are like, I know that in that bill, it says it needs to be completed by 2020, I think it said, or 2021, or
I think it
whenever.
was 2021. But there's a lot of misconceptions about that bill because it gave still the authority to the local board to actually decide what they want to adopt. So technically you're not out of compliance, even if the date is passed. So, but it might be good to do a Friday packet for the board outlining that law and that we are indeed in compliance, because ultimately it's up to the individual boards in terms of implementation. So does that sound good, Nikki? And then we can clarify.
Yeah, and I'll put the background of when our last adoption was, and just to remind you, because we actually got right in front of this, and we're in alignment with
Yeah.
the standards rolled out already.
Yeah, I want to repeat that too, Nikki.
Yeah.
Because it's the answer, because I'm by a microphone and you're not.
Oh,
So to answer Carrie's question, we are already in compliance. We were in compliance before this law was passed. And no changes are required to our curriculum at all to meet the new requirements. The requirements include things like parent opt-out and parent review of curriculum. We already had that. It required us to teach about positive consent, age appropriately at the right levels. We were doing that already. So, and I think it required teaching sex ed, and there were 2 or 3 districts in the state that hadn't been teaching. That was an impact to them, but we've been teaching it for long before I was on the board.
we didn't have to change anything
So we didn't have to change anything regarding
and didn't.
Here in Richland. And
in
so
Richland.
any
That's what
parents
this
that
is
are
talking
listening
about.
in that are like, well, wait a minute, why would they have passed this bill? I'll be honest, there's absolutely districts across the state, and I'm going to say most of them are on the west side, that did significantly change their
That's
sex
true.
ed curriculum.
They adopted new material and we did not change it.
Yes. And so I just want to assure parents that, yeah, your concerns are valid. Your concerns are valid, and that here in Richland, we are keeping it as it has always been. but that is not the case for many districts in this state post-bill. So, and I guess that also, the concerns for the new Senate Bill 5044, which was made into law, which discusses topics that are covered in critical race theory, but it's not actually mentioned in the bill. But that doesn't mean, I mean, there's certain topics, certain concepts that are discussed in this theory, critical race theory, that are addressed in this bill. And just to clarify to anybody who's listening in, that is to teach the adults, not the students. And for me, having been a teacher, I know that any professional development that I received as a teacher, the goal was then to implement that and to enrich my instruction. And so I just want parents to know that, yes, your concerns are valid, stay vigilant, but this board is being very specific that we are not adding any curriculum into this district that specifically teaches the theory of critical race that was developed. I think it was developed in the 70s. So, so yes, the teachers will be being taught components of that theory, but not the theory as a whole. We will also, school board directors are also in that law. We will be receiving some kind of professional development somewhere along the line. And to just stay vigilant and ask questions if you're concerned about any of the contents of those professional development, because we are here to represent you.
All right, with that, is there,
I'll make a motion that we
Second.
adopt resolution 931.
Seconded.
moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? If not, we're voting.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thanks again. The second agenda item for us is modification of COVID restrictions for some restrictions in schools. One of the things the board has been stating is, but we haven't done a motion or anything on like this, but we talked about it a couple nights ago as well. One of the things we've been talking about is these 5 board members want to open schools normally in the fall. That means not masked up, not social distance, the regular sports schedules and music stuff and all of the things that kids get to do and should be able to do. So what I'm looking for kind of is discussion on that. I have a proposed motion and talk about the motion. It's not written down or anything, but spend some time thinking about this. And the motion would be this board's goal is to open schools normally in the fall, unless specifically prohibited by law or by agencies with legal right to direct schools otherwise. The board also directs school administrators to work closely with our representatives, the governor's office, and state and local departments of health to reach this goal. So that's the motion that I wanted to talk about, and I can give that to you, Nancy. That's why I wrote it down.
I think that's great. I want to do everything we can.
And I think we've certainly heard from parents that they would like clarity now rather than later. And I think it's important in planning for staff and families before we return to fall, especially before the summer break.
So I know Dr. Redinger has been working with the departments of health and at the state level as well. And then Jill and I have been doing the same thing at the state level through the School Directors Association, meeting with putting together proposals and meeting with the State Department of Health and the Governor's Office. But I think having a motion from the board that then is communicated both locally and to our associations and the electeds provides help to them. And again, this isn't anything new. This is something that this board has been saying it's also hard for me. I have 5 kids and I have 5 grandkids, and it seems as if the only restrictions now we're seeing are in schools.
Mhm.
I can take my kids to Costco or Albertsons or Safeway or anywhere else.
Airports, we talked about
Airports are
Airports,
an
but-
exception still. So, I'd like to see some uniformity, and
that.
the reason for this motion and this discussion is to try to provide some push to it. And I
Well,
know you're already doing
Yeah,
it.
we're working on,
I
I think, yeah, multiple times a day that we, I've learned in this that we have to really be vocal and not wait. And so Melissa is working also in Olympia, talking to people. She's gonna follow up with, she said, she got a hold of a couple people, and then tomorrow they're gonna try to give us some dates when we'll get the information out. Dr. Person, I've been in contact with her. She is advocating for this information sooner than later, and agrees. She and I both were hoping that we would have more detail even for summer school. They have like all of our non-student buildings, we now, if individuals are vaccinated, they don't wear a mask. And so that was yesterday. The employees were extremely happy in those sites, especially with the heat coming. When the heat is hot as it's going to be, students will not go outside for summer school. So for recess because of the heat, but we do anyway with or without a mask. So we're watching that very carefully. And we continue to emphasize that students can take mask breaks on the bus. And Richard's talked to all of the team there so that they are very clear on that. But this will be a daily advocating daily on we need to get this done. I remember when we wanted to move to 3 feet because we could finally move out of hybrid. We were told over and over again, well, we're going to do that in the fall. We'll do 6 feet. We'll do 3 feet in the fall. We'll do 3 feet in the fall. And if we hadn't pushed in partnership with Kennewick and Pasco, I think we would not have gotten the full in person at the secondary level. So this feels like that again. And if you travel to the west side of our state, it's a whole different feel still. They're just, it's for whatever reason, very slow. I wish our governor would get after it a little bit quicker. He tends to follow what happens in Oregon. And so if you look at Oregon, they're going slower as well. So we just need to all of us keep pushing and getting things back to normal for our kids. I know we all want them to be able to see faces and smiles, and it's really needed. So Dr. Person, she is very much aligned. So I'll keep you posted.
And sort of to add on that, I'm going to make a plea to the community again. Local districts have control as long as the state does not forbid those. So we need to follow the regulations of the governor and the Department of Health. It's a little bit vague on what happens if we don't follow the local Department of Health. But the thing that I want people to understand is our local Department of Health has been very, very, very helpful in helping us push what the needs of our community want. Hence why we were able to get the kids back in school when we were the 3 feet versus the other. So if you want your voices heard, those voices need to go to Olympia and to the powers that are over there, because they're still the law of the land that as an elected office and a state organization, we have to follow. So I advocate every day. I'm talking to legislators and issues over there all the time, but we as a common voice need to use that in a positive manner and a positive idea of the community, rather than trying to point fingers or do whatever it is we're doing, but be that consistent voice going forward.
So on that note, can we as a board, I would like to as a board, reach out to our fellow board members on different boards, especially you two have so many connections with WASDA. We are making this motion to say, hey, we really want to have no masks and no social distancing. Can we reach out to our colleagues and do a call to action to them as well? Richland School District's fantastic, but if Kennewick were to do something similar, Pasco, Spokane, Meade, you know,
Yakima.
whomever, Yakima, these school districts, I feel like that speaks louder than one school district. Can we do that as an
Mhm.
organized effort? Can we
Mhm.
reach out to our constituents?
Our counterparts.
I mean, not our, yes, our,
I knew what you meant.
whatever I'm saying, yes.
I knew what you meant.
Thank you. We can reach out to our constituents too, that's cool.
Yeah, I
Which you
did
just
that.
did.
I just did that.
But our counterparts in other districts, I just think that that would be super powerful.
Mhm.
Good thinking. So the other thing I'd want to say about this is this is not a disregarding safety or disregarding science or regarding science one way or another. We are still asking them, but it is hard, just like every other industry right now, when we saw residential construction get shut down, but other parts of construction were able to continue going. It appears to this board, to us, to me, that the rules are different if you're in a school building than outside of a school building. Vaccinations are available and being implemented, and if it's truly science, the science should be the same inside the building as it is in a different kind of building. So I don't take this as the board directing them to disregard science, right? Or the law. I think it's this board saying it's everywhere else. Why are we making kids do
Mhm.
extra things that we're not making adults do in similar situations? So
And Washington and Oregon aren't islands.
No.
There's so many other states that we can look at as well.
do you want me to restate the motion? All right, and I'll give it to you afterwards anyway, Nancy. So I won't try to do it slow. So this board's goal is to open schools normally in the fall, unless specifically prohibited by law or by agencies with legal right to direct schools otherwise. The board also directs school administrators to work closely with our representatives, the governor's office, and state and local Department of Health to reach this goal. That's the motion. I'll make the motion if someone wants to second it.
I'll
Oh.
second it.
All right,
Oh, yes.
here we go. Any further discussion on this one?
No.
All right, we're voting again.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. And that is the end of the board special meeting, facility planning.
Yes.
All right, so
Thank
we
you.
are adjourned. Thank you.
You have one.
Until July.
Yeah,
July
27th.
27th.
and that'll be a real quick one.
Yes.
That's the 5-minute
Yeah.